You've probably met someone who freezes when the spotlight turns their way, who would rather melt into the background than stand in front of a crowd. They blush when complimented, deflect praise, and quietly hope nobody notices them too much. They're not shy in every situation. They can laugh, talk, and even lead. But once too many eyes are on them, something inside tightens. Why do some people hate being the center of attention, even when it's positive? The answer isn't simple. It's psychological, emotional, and deeply tied to how they see themselves in the world. Before we begin, remember to subscribe, because understanding yourself and others starts with understanding why we feel what we feel. 1. The hidden anxiety beneath attention. When people say they hate attention, it's not usually the attention itself they fear. It's the evaluation that comes with it. The feeling of being watched, analyzed, or silently judged triggers a survival response. Psychologists call this social evaluative threat, a form of anxiety that activates the same stress hormones as physical danger. Your heart races, hands sweat, mind blanks. It's not because you're weak, it's because your brain perceives judgment as risk. To the nervous system, too many eyes feel like 1,000 tiny mirrors, each one reflecting your flaws louder than your strengths. 2. The childhood blueprint. For many, the discomfort with attention begins early. Maybe as a child they were told, "Don't show off," or scolded for being too much. Maybe they learned that being noticed meant being corrected, teased, or embarrassed. Their subconscious formed a simple rule: visibility equals danger. So as adults, they avoid attention not out of modesty, but out of protection. In psychology, this is known as conditioning avoidance, when a person learns to stay safe by staying small. It's not that they lack confidence, it's that confidence feels unsafe. 3. The fear of losing control. Being the center of attention means you can't control how others perceive you. And for someone who values emotional safety, that's terrifying. They fear being misunderstood, mocked, or trapped in someone else's narrative. So they retreat. Psychologists link this to self-monitoring, the constant internal scanning of how one is being perceived. It's exhausting. The more attention they get, the more self-aware they become, until their mind spirals into overthinking. They're not running from people, they're running from the anxiety of being misread. 4. The mirror effect. Attention is a mirror, and not everyone likes what they see in it. When people look at you, it reflects your self-image back to you, magnified. So if you secretly doubt your worth, attention feels like exposure. Every glance feels like a spotlight on the parts you try to hide. This is why those with low implicit self-esteem, meaning they appear confident, but subconsciously feel unworthy, often struggle most. They crave recognition but dread receiving it. They want to be seen, just not looked at. 5. The introvert's conflict. Introverts aren't necessarily afraid of attention, they're drained by it. It's not fear, it's overstimulation. Their nervous systems process social input deeply, noticing tone, micro-expressions, atmosphere. So when everyone's gaze hits at once, it's like sensory overload. Their mind becomes too full, their emotions too loud, and retreat feels like relief. In neuroscience, this sensitivity ties to the dopamine reward system. Extroverts gain energy from social attention. Introverts feel drained by it. It's biology, not weakness. 6. The false label of antisocial. People who avoid attention often get mislabeled as cold, distant, or unfriendly. But that couldn't be further from the truth. They're often deeply empathetic and self-aware, sometimes too much so. They just prefer genuine one-on-one connection over public performance. They feel safest when they can listen, observe, and respond naturally. not when they're expected to entertain. What they seek isn't invisibility, it's authenticity. They don't want to perform themselves, they just want to be themselves. 7. The perfectionist's trap. Another layer, perfectionism. People who set impossibly high standards for themselves dread attention because it exposes the gap between who they are and who they think they should be. Every glance becomes a silent test. Every compliment becomes pressure to live up to it. Psychologists call this imposter phenomenon, the feeling of being a fraud despite evidence of competence. They fear that the more people notice them, the more likely someone will discover their flaws. So they hide behind humility, hoping invisibility will protect them from exposure. 8. The trauma of spotlight moments. Sometimes the fear of attention comes from a specific moment, one that left an emotional scar, a school presentation that went wrong, a public humiliation, a comment that made the whole room laugh at your expense. The brain stores such moments as flashbulb memories, vivid, emotionally charged snapshots that replay with every similar situation. To others, it's just attention. To them, it's that memory all over again. And so, even years later, their body reacts as if the spotlight is danger itself. 9. The quiet power behind the curtain. But here's what most people miss. Those who hate the spotlight often shine brightest behind it. They're thinkers, creators, and observers, the ones who notice what others overlook, because they aren't busy performing, they're busy perceiving. Their insight runs deep, their empathy sharper, their presence quietly grounding. They don't crave center stage because they understand something most don't, that attention fades, but understanding lasts. 10. The beauty of soft presence. People who hate attention bring a different kind of light, one that doesn't blind, but warms. They lead by example, not announcement. They influence quietly, through consistency and depth. Their calm steadiness makes others feel seen without feeling exposed. And in a world obsessed with visibility, their quiet grace becomes a form of rebellion. 11. The safety of small circles. For people who hate attention, intimacy feels safer than visibility. A few close friends, quiet laughter in small rooms. That's where they feel alive. It's not that they don't like people, they just value depth over exposure. In psychology, this is tied to selective social engagement, the idea that meaningful connection feels better than widespread attention. Their nervous system calms when they're seen deeply by one person, not broadly by many. That's why parties exhaust them, but long conversations heal them. To them, real presence feels like being understood, not observed. 12. The energy economy. Every interaction costs energy. Extroverts refuel from being seen. Attention is energy in. But for these individuals, attention is energy out. Psychologists describe this using the concept of social energy balance. Being watched, praised, or confronted triggers a subtle adrenaline release, which feels like alertness, but eventually drains the body. They walk away from social settings tired, even if they smiled the whole time. So when they avoid attention, it's not avoidance, it's energy management. They're not antisocial, they're careful with their battery. 13. The invisible strength of observation. One of their greatest abilities is observation. Because they're not focused on being seen, they see everything. The tone of someone's voice, the discomfort behind a smile, the emotion in silence. They notice it all. This deep observational skill gives them empathy that performers rarely achieve. They understand people without needing to speak much. And in many cases, they become the emotional stabilizers, the ones who make others feel comfortable without saying a word. Ironically, their quietness becomes their presence, It's not loud, but it's powerful. 14. The hidden conflict with praise. Here's something subtle. People who hate attention often feel awkward when praised. Even when it's genuine, they'll deflect with a joke, shift the topic, or say it was nothing. This reaction ties to self-concept incongruence, when external validation doesn't match their internal belief system. If they see themselves as humble, unnoticed, or not that special, praise creates dissonance. Their brain can't fully accept it, so they reject it. Not because they don't value it, but because it feels foreign. It's not low self-esteem, it's discomfort with recognition. They feel safest when invisible, not applauded. 15. The role of shame in visibility. Many people think of shame as something dramatic, but it's often quiet. A whisper that says, "Don't draw attention, don't embarrass yourself." That's internalized shame, a learned self-protection mechanism that keeps you small. People who hate attention often learn to equate visibility with vulnerability. To be seen was to risk being hurt, so they built a life of invisibility to avoid that sting. But shame thrives in silence. It dissolves only when faced with compassion, when someone sees you fully and doesn't turn away. That's why gentle, accepting attention from friends or partners can slowly heal the discomfort of being seen. 16. The quiet leader. One of the most surprising traits among those who dislike attention is that they often make exceptional leaders, not because they want power, but because they lead without ego. They listen more than they speak. They think before reacting. They care more about direction than dominance. This leadership style is known as servant leadership, guiding others from empathy rather than authority. They don't need to be in the spotlight to influence. Their calm, grounded presence speaks louder than words. And that's the paradox. The people who hate being the center of attention often become the kindest centers of influence. 17. The slow work of visibility. Learning to exist comfortably in attention isn't about forcing confidence. It's about expanding tolerance. Therapists use a concept called exposure hierarchy, gradual exposure to discomfort until it loses its power. It starts small, speaking up in a meeting, accepting a compliment without deflection, sharing an opinion publicly. Each step rewires the brain's association between attention and danger. Over time, what once triggered panic starts to feel neutral, even empowering. They learn that being seen doesn't always hurt. Sometimes it heals. 18. The beauty of quiet expression. People who hate attention often find freedom through indirect expression. They write, create, paint, compose, build, letting their work speak louder than their words. Psychologists call this symbolic communication, expressing inner truth through art, action, or service rather than speech. And it's beautiful. It's a reminder that attention doesn't have to be loud to be meaningful. They may never crave a stage, but their presence still reaches others, subtly, deeply, quietly. They leave a mark that glows, not flashes. 19. The paradox of wanting to be seen. Here's the quiet confession of many who hate attention. They still want to be seen, just not misunderstood. They long for recognition that feels safe, for someone to notice their effort without turning it into a performance. That paradox, wanting connection but fearing attention, is deeply human. And it's resolved not by becoming louder, but by being met with gentleness, by finding people who see without spotlighting, who listen without demanding. When that happens, their discomfort slowly transforms into trust. 20. The final reflection. So what does it really mean to hate being the center of attention? It means you value truth over show, connection over performance, peace over spectacle. It means you were never meant to be the loudest in the room, because your strength lies in the quiet power of presence. You don't need a spotlight to shine. You already do. Softly, constantly, in ways most people never notice until the world goes quiet enough to feel it. And if this resonated with you, if you've ever felt like fading into the background just to breathe again, remember, there's nothing wrong with being unseen. Sometimes the ones who step out of the spotlight are the ones who see the world most clearly. If you found comfort in these words, subscribe, because in this series, we keep exploring the psychology of quiet strength, hidden confidence, and the beauty of being exactly who you are, even when no one's watching.